Hey guys, Marnie Swedberg here today with one of our featured speakers over at Women Speakers, Lisa Toney. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, good to meet you, Marnie.
I
Thanks for
did it again. Tony. Lisa
having
Toney.
me. That's right.
Oh, I love it. And I love that you are here with us today. And I'm sitting in the middle of snow, and you're over there in California.
That's
So,
right.
with your beautiful beach scene behind you. So lovely.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is a wall in my office for inspiration.
Yeah, right. And you are mom of four. You're a pastor, a speaker, and you work with women of faith as one of their voices. And you are here to share with us some of your favorite aha moments with God. And I'm excited to pick your brain. Before we get going into that, do you have like a favorite verse for life or a theme verse for this season?
Hmm. Well, there's lots of verses that have been very powerful to me. I actually picked a word for this year, so
Mm.
I don't
Oh,
know if you've
cool.
heard
Yeah,
that. It's
yeah,
kind of a Maxwell thing to like
yeah.
pick a leadership word or focus. So my word for 2019 has been available. God, I just want to be
Oh,
available
I
to what
love
you have
that.
for me. So,
Mm.
so I've just kind of tried to have that posture of open-handedness to what God would have, and so that's been part of my prayer routine every morning. And really what I'm looking for as I'm reading scriptures this year is just, Lord, how can I most be available to my family? How can I be available in
Mm.
my marriage? How can I be available to the people that you call me to minister to and serve? How can I be available to strangers that I encounter?
Mm.
So I guess that's more of,
Beautiful.
my focus is this year is that word that I feel like the Lord gave me
Yep.
as I read lots of different scriptures and prayerfully approach them.
Oh, that's so cool. That's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And your first quote that we're going to talk about is love disrupts so that hope can spring up.
Yes. I love this quote and I love hope. I talk about
Mm.
hope a lot. I feel like hope is something that we as Christians have the opportunity to impact the world the most with. And there's nothing that Jesus can't hear or handle that he
Mm.
can't bring more hope into that situation. And so I'm a passionate advocate of that. And I was just reading the I've been doing a teaching series in John, and I was thinking about John as the beloved disciple, and it got me really thinking about him. He names himself 5 times in scripture as the beloved disciple, the one that Jesus loved. And I'm like, what did John know about love that was so unique?
Mm.
Because if you think about John and you go back to his calling, which is found in Luke chapter 5, we see him as, a salty sea man of the sea. He's a fisherman, and his whole entire calling, when he gets called to follow Jesus, he had no idea that Jesus was coming or who he was. He had been out on the
Right.
sea all night long, and we pick up the story with him having been out on the water, totally not catching any fish. And so, no fish for a fisherman is complete failure, right? And so he
Yeah.
had come off the water, and he was a man who was used to being covered in sea salt spray and watching the fish market numbers and watching the weather. Red skies at night, sailors delight. Red skies at morning, sailors take warning, right? So he was a man of the sea. And together with his brother James, they were the sons of thunder. So, they probably had like lightning bolt tattoos and the whole thing. And so they probably were passionate and maybe a little bit loud. And, I just envision these sailor guys. And when they come in on the scene, Jesus had wandered in, and he asked Peter to take him out in the boat so that he can teach to the crowds that had gathered and use the water to amplify him. And then later he asked Peter to row him out further to deep water. And I could only imagine the exchange between those friends, because Peter and John and James were all fishing friends. And, John was probably like, better you than me. I'm ready to head home and take a shower and catch a cup of coffee. And so as Peter did that, and of course, Jesus, had Peter put his nets back out, and Peter was like, Jesus, we haven't caught any fish all night. What are you doing? And didn't want to be disrespectful to a rabbi, of course. And as Peter pulled those nets in, and they were filled with fish. I mean, they just must have been completely shocked. Who the heck is this Jesus that can bring
Right.
this kind of abundance in? And so then, the story says that John and James got in their boat and they went out too. And so John put out his nets, and he felt that familiar tug of fish in his nets. And the account is so cool because it says not only were their nets ripping out, but there were so much fish that their boat almost began to sink. So you can just imagine these piles of fish like ankle deep, knee deep, thigh deep, chest deep. And they're like, what is this? Who is this? What is going on? Right.
Right.
And then the account says that they pulled their boats into shore. They left them. So they left the biggest catch of their lives. I mean, that was so many fish. I mean, they left
Yeah.
them free fish for the taking in the Sea of Galilee, you know, I mean, the region, they could just come grab it. They were rotting in the sun
Yeah.
and they left and they followed Jesus. And so I just think of that profound experience that must have impacted John so deeply, that he
Mm.
must have encountered Jesus and realized, you know what, I don't need to be afraid anymore. Because, you know, if I, with all my skills and experience, could go out and fish in the deep and catch nothing all night long. And when I'm with Jesus, there's abundance. There's abundance. I mean, that just must have caused hope to spring up in his soul, you know?
Yeah.
And so as I was kind of just thinking through John and him being the beloved disciple, and as he talks to us about how God is love and love is found in God, it just made me really think about this whole idea of disruption, that John's life was completely disrupted by love. And that's what happens when we encounter Jesus. Our entire life is disrupted. When love disrupts us, it is so that hope can spring up in us. And so that's just one of my favorite things to think about as I think about the radical, passionate, transformative, powerful, disruptive love of God, and how much I need that in my life and how much our world needs that. And that when we are able to do that to our neighbors and our families and the people around us, that's what's going to change this world with the love of Jesus. When we love in surprising ways, that disrupts them.
Love it. The next one is get out of the grind, go back to the grid.
Yes. So go back to the grind, or get out of the grind, go back to the grid. So I talk about this when I talk about work-life balance. And, you know, for all of us, that is a constant challenge and struggle. I refer to it, is it the mythical unicorn? Does it really exist? The balance between work and life, because so many of us are just so, you know, committed. I mean, it's all with good reasons and goals, but there is that challenge of, you know, what I need to do at home and with my family, and then the responsibilities that my job calls me to do. And so I just came up with a really simple grid that I encourage people to work to manage their time. And whenever you feel like the grind is taking over you, I refer people back to this time grid to help them with their scheduling and planning and trying to really track the amount of hours that we have in the day. And, you know, God as creator gave us the 24 hours in the day. And so I always challenge people, did God mess up there, or do you think there really is enough time in the day? Did he really know what he was doing when he gave us 24 hours? And so if God really knew what he was doing, then maybe there actually is enough time to get it all done. And we need to figure out ways to manage our time even better.
Yeah, I love that. Mine is there's time to do everything God wants me to do. There's not time to do everything or everything good or everything everybody else wants me to do or even everything I want to do. But since God is God, there must be time to do
Marnie, I
everything
think
he
I may
wants me
have
to do.
lost you. So I'm not sure if I should keep
Oh,
talking or if we need to start again.
well, I can still hear
I'm
you.
going to keep talking, and I'm just going to tell you a story about this.
Okay.
When I was getting ready for a big conference, I got a call from my husband, and he knew better usually than to call me on a Friday, because that's usually the crazy time of getting all the conference stuff ready. And as he did call on a Friday, though, so I did answer the phone. And when he called, he's like, Lisa, there has been a tragedy in our family. I'm like, oh no, what is going on? And he said, one of our chickens have died. I'm like,
Oh,
whew, all right, well, all the kids are still alive and standing, check. Husband's still alive and check. Standing, check. House still up and standing, check. But not all of our chickens. We had a chicken for each of our kids, and so poor Winter had fallen off the coop and died. And so you know, I was in the middle of planning this conference and getting ready to go speak, and my husband's like, here, you have to talk to our 5-year-old. And so he hands me off to our 5-year-old, and he's just wailing, Mommy, Winter died. And so, you know, I have to chicken funeral proceed without me. And as the chicken funeral proceeded without me, I had to go back and speak into that whole group of women. And so that balance that we try and face between life and work is just a challenging one. But it can happen if we work the grid to get out of the grind.
Oh, awesome. Can you hear me now, Lisa?
I can. We lost you for a minute. So I just started talking. I don't know.
Way to go. The way to go. No, that was great.
Or not.
The chicken story. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, we're going to go on to the next one, which is stay out of the frying pan. Priorities need a plan.
Yes, that's right. And, I love living life to the fullest. I believe that Jesus gave us this life so that we could have the abundant life. And so part of that is really thinking through what are your priorities? And in order to see those to fruition, you've got to have a plan to fulfill those. I always laugh because when I have 4 kids, and when I had my first baby, I was due right around Labor Day. And so I made it my goal. And this is obviously, Jesus was very gracious, but I went into labor on Labor Day. And so I was so proud of myself. I'm like, yes. It was just awesome. And it was hard because my parents had flown in from Michigan to California, and we'd had a meal. They went to bed. I, was humongously pregnant, went to bed, and my husband had just taken a sleeping pill. And as soon as I laid down, I think I went to bed at 9:30, my water broke. And I woke up, and my husband had just taken up a sleeping pill. But I'm here to let you know that the effects of adrenaline are even stronger than that of a sleeping pill. And so we were still able to get to the hospital on time. But, as busy women as we all are with all the things that we have, we need to make sure that our priorities are what we are working towards, not just the tyranny of the urgent. Just filling what's urgent. And I think so often we get so busy that it's easy just to do what's urgent and what's immediate. And if we really want to work what our priorities are, that, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral, and who are those people that are going to speak, and are we pouring into them first? And so I really feel it's so important. And I love to encourage and work with people to work a plan so that you can see your priorities happen.
Yeah, I love plans, and I love thinking ahead because, my mom taught us, and we're all there's 4 sisters in my family, and my mom taught us that if you have everything organized and planned out in advance, it allows you to be extremely flexible in the moment. Absolutely. And I love that. It isn't that the plan becomes the God. It's that the plan frees you to actually be present in the moment instead of to be doing the things that maybe should have been done in advance.
Exactly. I love that, Marnie. It's so true. So true.
Okay. The next one is live consistent and pray persistent.
Yes, live consistent, pray persistent. And this is something that I've been learning over the last few years. I've been praying for something that God has been very, very slow to answer, and it's just been really hard. Our youngest child, when she was about 2.5, started coming up to me telling me that her eye hurt. And as a busy mom with 4 kids, I was just like, yeah. It was a summer of sunscreen and, siblings and chlorine and beaches, sand. And so I just thought, well, she's got something in her eye, but she kept persisting. And so I ended up taking her to the doctor, and he referred us to a specialist, and they drilled me about eye history over and over. And I'm like, what is going on? And my little 2.5-year-old got diagnosed with extreme case of cataracts. And I thought, cataracts, that's so like what my parents are having surgery for, not a 2.5-year-old. So, and her vision was so dense, they think that it was a congenital case of cataracts that she hadn't been able to see out of her eyes since she was born, and that she probably could only see light, maybe light.
Wow.
And it just blindsided me and my husband. As a mom, you're like, you think you know your kids. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just feel terrible if she's been struggling with this and I didn't know. And, but it became kind of this urgent situation that the doctor said she needs to have surgery within a month, because the problem is when your brain begins to realize that you have a part of your body that isn't working, it starts to shut off contact. And so they were really concerned that if we didn't have surgery right away, that even if we got her eye healthy, it wouldn't reconnect to her brain. And so it began this huge, very quick, fast paced of trying to find a pediatric specialist for cataracts for children. it was a whole insurance battle, but God led us to a wonderful surgeon and the Stein Eye Institute in Los Angeles, and they've been wonderful. And through her surgery process, she ended up having 3 different types of cataracts and multiple of each one layered so deeply in her eye. And so, and our surgeon had warned us, the surgery is something that he could do, and he replaced her lens, so she has an artificial lens, but it's the process of the working that eye to get it strong and healthy and reconnected to the brain. And so we've just had tons of people praying and praying and praying. And her vision was so bad. He said that she was 21,000. So, that's almost the distance of 3 football fields away that she could not see. And so, I'm such an optimistic person, and I'm like, Lord, you're going to answer this prayer. And, after her surgery, she was better. She went to 2,800 and then 2,600, but 2,200 legally blind. And so we had a long way to go. And for an entire year, we saw no movement in her eye. And I was just devastated. And so this aha moment of, live consistent, pray persistent is something that God really put in our hearts and in our lives, that even if he chose not to heal her and she couldn't see out of her eye, that we were still going to know that God was speaking to us clearly and that we could see God clearly. And so it's been a journey for us. She's just turned 5. And God has been working in her life. And I still remember taking her every few months we'd go, and she has to patch her good eye. So she has to spend 6 hours a day patched with her good eye. And that's really hard for a little girl. But I still remember I would take her and I'd hold her in my arms, and I'd stand her almost right up next to the wall where they would put pictures up because she didn't know her letters yet. And he put up a little picture of a birthday cake. And I still remember when she could, he covered her good eye and forced her to look with her bad eye. And she said, "Happy birthday to you." And she could see that cake, and it just melted my heart. And so the Lord has been healing her. It's been a journey the last 2.5 years. And she has her last appointment. It's just remarkable. She has gone from 21,000 to 2030. She is 20/20 vision.
Wow.
So our doctor just says, he can't even believe it. He's just remarkable. That's his word, remarkable. And I said, well, you know what? Our Jesus is remarkable.
That's right.
God healed her. And we're not done yet. I am praying for 2020. So we'll go back in a few months, and I am just praying that we hit that, and to God be the glory that he has completely healed her through that process.
That's so beautiful. And you know what I always say about stories like yours or any story out of the Bible? They're terrible to live, but they're awesome in their faith boosting when you hear the end result, but to live through it is a whole different thing, because you really just have to believe that God's got you, and that however this looks today, it's not the end.
Exactly.
We've got this great big God. Oh, well, this has been so fun. Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Marnie. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. You guys can learn more about Lisa over at womenspeakers.com. Lisa, Toney from California. Thanks for being here. And thanks you guys for being here. See you next time. Bye-bye.